Welcome to the Week 7 wrap-up here at this 17th season of Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Do you ever get frustrated that a star player, a powerhouse, is languishing on a terrible team's roster? I mean, in the real world, we could call that the Jim Brown effect, maybe the Barry Sanders effect. It seems to happen every year in fantasy. Now, this originally came to my mind as I thought Bijan Robinson is going to go down with the ship. I still have a winning record. I still have a decent shot to make the playoffs, but I am clearly the least intimidating team with a winning record. Only one of two teams that hasn't even broken 150 yet this year. That's a whole separate issue. But then I got to thinking about Jamar Chase on our last place Hoffman's team. He's sitting at 1-6, and that poor guy is just going to go down with that ship. He is going to be on clearly at 1-6. This will be a losing season for Hoffman. Highly unlikely he will even make the playoffs, and yet he's got this fantastic star receiver. Not the number one receiver in the league, just because of the inconsistent quarterback. Well, I won't even say play. Inconsistent starters behind center. But do you ever think about making a play for one of those guys? I mean, obviously we all play for our team to win, and there's no benefit. It's not like we get draft picks for next year. Or do we? Interesting. We don't have a dynasty league. But I'd be willing to hear a solid case for a trade for this year involving a draft pick or some benefit for next year. That might be an interesting thought. Interesting to consider. Let's look back at the scores from this past week. A lot of blowouts. In fact, only one was close, and the average margin of victory for all games, over 42 points. So some of these weren't close from about noon on Sunday, no matter what time zone you were in. And unfortunately, that's where we start. Kamish suffers a beatdown, second largest margin of lost victory, second to only, well, we'll get to that one later. But no matter what Kamish could have brought, as you see, it wouldn't have mattered. Whiskey Business brought some lamb and some rice, and that was all that he needed because, frankly, Kamish didn't bring much. In fact, almost ended up with the lowest score. Thought it was going to be the lowest score until Poncho slid in just under. So that was nice. So again, even at full potential, Kamish was well short. Whiskey Business is back on track after two rough losses, averaging about 100 points the last 2 weeks. He ends up posting the highest score of this week, and so keeps himself in first place in the East. Our next game, we've got Don Chris versus our champ. Another blowout. Our champ is on a roll. 6 straight wins after dropping the season opener, averaging almost 170 a game during the last 6 weeks. He's got the number one receiver in Smith and Jigba. I don't know how that guy is going to maintain that, but he's got Jonathan Taylor is lighting it up. Jonathan Taylor posts his 4th 30-plus point game. Smith and Jigma almost gets his third, comes 0.7 of a point from posting his 30-plus point game. He's got the number one wide receiver, the number 2 running back. He had 101 bench points as you look at what the potentials were there. 210 would have been his perfect roster. It's looking scary. Looking like he might steamroll through the playoffs. I guess we'll have to see. Don Chris, on the other hand, he could have started his entire bench in addition to his starting lineup, and it wouldn't have even given him a shot. He wouldn't have even been close. So that he suffers his second straight loss, second straight week scoring 116 points. Unfortunately, he's going to be struggling to make the playoffs himself. So let's look at our next score. We got Shankopotamus and Hoffman. This was disappointing on a number of levels. If you look at what was possible, Shankopotamus, Keith, did just about everything that he could. And in fact, I misspoke. This is the highest score on the week by just a few over Whiskey Business. But he just about maximized his score. And if you look at what Hoffman could have done, he could have won again. But obviously, scoring 147, almost 148 points, highest score for a losing team. That's disappointing. However, it was also the 6th highest score, so everybody who won scored more than that. So pros and cons there. He's got some good takeaways. Honestly, it seems like it's hard to know on his roster who to start. But this was Keith's highest, not just of the week, but it was also the highest for him. CMC doing his thing, number 1 running back. A.J. Brown finally shows up. He just kind of steamrolled on this one. Poor Hoffman didn't flex Keenan Allen. That would almost have won him the game on its own, but he would have needed to put Charbonnet in, but he could have won that one. So drops to 1-6. Oh man, he is steamrolling to last place for the 2nd straight year. It is a bit of a disappointment. Our next game, we got Jersey Birds and read option. This was the only close game that we had of the week. And in fact, it looked very much like it was going to go the other way. It came down to the final Monday night game. I hate saying that. One Monday night game, please, NFL. But it came down to a defense and a kicker. That defense held off just long enough. 33 points. That's pretty amazing. And the kicker did just enough, and he was able to sneak past read option. So poor Alex Billy ends up dropping down. This was for who had a winning record. They both went in 3-3. Only one could come out with a winning record, and it was Jersey Birds. Interesting the way that all worked out. Alex Billy, don't gamble on Jerry Jeudy. It's just not worth it. He's only had one double-digit point game this season, and it was in week 1 against the Bengals. I wouldn't count on that. And McCaffrey, I could have told you, he is touchdown dependent. Good when he gets a touchdown, doesn't get a lot of looks. Again, I would have expected more than 0, but any other active player on Alex Billy's bench would have gotten him the win. Any of them in the flex spot, except for the guy who scored 0. He drops down, and so we'll see. It also takes a hit. His percentage to make the playoffs takes a hit too, unfortunately. Our final game of the week, Peanuts and Pet Detective. This was the final, the low score and the worst blowout of the week. So congratulations, guys, for being best at something. Best at being worst? I don't know. Anyway, Joe himself is on a roll. 5 straight wins, 163 points, and shrugs off a disappointing week last week. He won, scored 103, but he won decisively this week. So as you look at his roster, man, 130 points from just 4 players. The exciting thing for Pancho, the good takeaway is 100-point pop. 100%, not 100 point, 100% perfect roster, which is also really sad and disappointing. But that's how they stack up, and that's where they leave us. That's how we leave them for week 7. So we'll see. Let's look at our standings now to see how it all shapes up. It is kind of stretched out in the West. No one has a similar record, but our champ is maintaining his position there at number 1. We look over at the East. It's a little tie for last place there at the end. Interesting that they put Pancho ahead of Don Chris, and yet Don Chris has more than double the chance that Pancho has for making the playoffs. I still don't know how they figure all that stuff out, but it's starting to look like there are some who are just very unlikely, or we could probably just say aren't going to make the playoffs already. Ties back to that excellent players languishing on terrible teams. If we look at our season stats, first of all, we just see our stacked 1 through 10. Whiskey Business gets the number 2 spot just by virtue of being in the East. He's the leader over there, so he gets the number 2 spot. But interesting that we have a couple of teams, Alex, Billy, and Keith, over 1,000 points, just 4 teams over 1,000, and yet they're on the bottom half. Obviously, they have a lot of points scored against them. But as you look at the points for, no surprise that our champ's sitting there at the top, 75 points as a cushion, a buffer, likely to carry that number 1 spot into next week. Interesting thing that we've got, again, Alex, Billy, and Keith top of the scoring list here, but bottom of the record list. So is that right? The record list, bottom of the records, bottom of the whatever. They're at the bottom. And your commish, second from last on points scored, but somehow just hanging out at number 5. Part of that is by virtue of these numbers. If you look at points against, so not only is your commish benefiting from not a lot of points scored, middle of the road, but that's also how Seth Mike is making a living over there. Fewest points against, and again, as you look at that spread from number 1 to number 10, poor Poncho sitting there at almost 1,075 points against. Again, that comes down to 30 points a game that Poncho's having to endure that Seth Mike isn't. Let's take a look at our power rankings. We end up with just a few outliers, but a lot more starting to come back to their early draft, post-draft projection. Pet Detectives, Jersey Birds, right back at 3 and 4 where they were originally projected. Read Option only gets one bump up, and Don Chris, Bigger Parsons gets a couple points up. But again, the big winner, that's going to be your champ, projected dead second to last, sitting at the presumptive number 1, and Shankopotamus Keith has, and your commish, unfortunately. Both have dropped 4 spots. So we'll have to see how these continue on, if they even matter, or if it's just filler for me to be able to add a little more color and commentary. As we take a look at another meaningless number that's just kind of interesting to talk about, we look at our pop, the percentage to perfection for this week, and we see that we got a little shake up at the top. Joe maintains his spot there in second place. In fact, at the exact same percentage that he had going into week 7, but because of the champ sliding just a little bit and Ian bumping up, no one's has over 90%, unfortunately. But as we see, Ian takes that top spot, and your bottom 2 stay the same. Don Chris, H2, hanging out at the bottom there. The one nice thing is that Hoffman did increase his percentage by 0.2 of a point. So he's working his way back up to something somewhat reasonable, I suppose. As we look ahead to this next week, well, a lot of games don't really matter. Everybody hanging out in the middle. However, it's the number 1s versus the number 2s from the division. Number 1 in the East, number 1 in the West. Number 2 in the East, number 2 in the West. They're going head to head. So, will the number 1s, will your reigning champ and Whiskey Business, as they go head to head, will this be one of those fireworks shootouts? Will it be underwhelming and only one of them shows up? Which one of them gets the win and maintains their position in first place? And as we look at the number 2s, we've got Joe versus Jersey Birds. Which one of them will be able to take a step, put some pressure on, maybe even take over the number 1 spot in their division? 2 interesting games to watch for as you enjoy Week 8.